Good morning, everyone, and welcome to On the Wrong Lead presents Saratoga Daily. I am Mark, and we are going to do a little looking at the Alabama card for Saturday, August 15th. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. Yesterday was one of those days where you get one or two of them per Saratoga meet, and absolute calamity breaks out. We had a bunch of bombs come in. The late pick 5 was a single person hit it, single ticket hit for $500 and something, or $600,000, a little over $600,000. Somebody pot cleared it. You're going to get those days, and you're going to have those at Saratoga. And what I found historically the best thing to do is forget they happened. A lot of, my look at that card was there was a lot of cheap races and a lot of cheap horses, and sometimes those calamity factors just happen. I don't think it was a bias thing. I don't think it was a massive track change that you need to chase. I think it's just one of those days that you push out of your mind, pretend never happens, and just sort of move on. You're better if you blank it right out. I've had in the past when those have happened, I've tried to look back at all the races and see what was happening. Was it a pace setup? Was it did I miss things? What was going on? And I've always ended up chasing my tail and never found it to be productive. I've always found it to be a situation that just craziness happens occasionally. You move on and you push those days aside. So let's talk about this Alabama card. I have a late pick 3 play that I'm going to walk through, and then I'm going to also add the fourth leg, the first leg that starts it, because I'm starting in the Bama and going the next 3. And if you want to play a pick 4 there, you could easily turn my pick 3 into a pick 4. So obviously Alabama. We're talking a mile and a quarter. We're talking a classic distance, and the race really begins and ends with Swiss Skydiver. She's done nothing wrong in her last few starts. She barely lost the Bluegrass to Art Collector. Won the San Diego Oaks and the Fantasy and the Gulfstream Park Oaks. She's been and done so pretty convincingly and pretty easily, and she's improved every race. She's gotten better every race. She's exactly what you want here. She's the type of horse that can again move forward and win this. So why am I not just singling her and moving on? A couple reasons. First thing is that everyone's going to single her and move on. You won't get even money. You're probably going to get maybe 4 to 5 here, 3 to 5. She's going to take a ton of money. And if people are playing horizontal sequences, they're trying to get out of this race cheap. So they're going to try to single her, or they're going to, maybe put a price in here way out or something. They're going to try to get really aggressive through Swiss Skydiver. They're going to look at this race effectively as a free square. And I have some questions about her. She's a daredevil by Johannesburg. Top and bottom, that screams sprinter. She's definitely very fast, and she's going to definitely be forwardly placed on a track that has been very kind to forwardly placed horses. The problem is this is a route. We've been watching a lot of sprint races, and historically at Saratoga, routes are not as speed favoring, especially when you're talking 10 furlongs. So looking at her pedigree, it kind of makes me go, ooh, I don't know if she wants to go this far. She's never gone this far. It's always a little scary when a horse does something for the first time. And, I have enough... And the other thing is here, and Chase has brought this up a few times, Ken McPeak has 2 horses in here. Swiss Skydiver's already Kentucky Oaks qualified. And for the first time ever, the Alabama is a Kentucky Oaks points qualifying race. So you really wonder, is Swiss Skydiver really cranked? Is this really the intent? I don't think it is. I think the Kentucky Oaks is what they want. And I think she's here maybe as a bit of a glorified work. And so you kind of wonder, are they going to really beat her up to win this? No, probably not, when they get a lot more money in the Kentucky Oaks and a lot more prestige as a broodmare. The horse I'm really super interested in here is Envoûtante, the other Ken McPeak horse. So that adds a bunch of other layers, but the reason I'm really interested in her is actually the horse itself. If you look at her pedigree, she's an Uncle Mo with Bluegrass Cat on the bottom. A, she should be a good turf horse if they ever decide to put her back on the turf, even though she really didn't show much the couple of times they did. And B, she should get this distance easily. Her last 2 races have been much improved. So my thought here is that she may be that late blooming 3-year-old who is rounding into form, and she needs some help to get into the Kentucky Oaks. She needs to run big here. Ken McPeak and Jose Ortiz are great together. Obviously, Jose Ortiz is pretty much great with everybody, but exceptionally good with Ken McPeak. 44% at Saratoga in the last year, and 22% overall, which is better than what both of them do regularly. So that combination is a very, very good combination. The other thing is, if you're a little bit of a game theory person here, if Envuitant is involved, Ken McPeak may have very well told TGAF, hey, if she's there late, let her win. And the reason is Ken McPeak then has 2 starters in the Kentucky Oaks gate versus just having 1, and that's good for everybody. So I don't want to go into this with a mindset that Swiss Skydiver is not live. She's clearly the best horse in the race. I think Envuitant has a bunch of upside, and I think it's just a really interesting spot. I don't think you'll get 8-1 because I think all the wise guys are talking about this horse. She had really good works. There's a lot of things to like here. There's a bunch of other horses in here who I don't like. I think Spice is Nice has the same distance compromised. She's curling on top of her Bernardini, which she should be able to get the distance, but I think she needs to be on or just off the lead. She's not going to be that here. She's going to be, Crystal Ball and Swiss Skydiver are much faster. I think Spice is Nice going to take a bunch of dirt. I don't know if she necessarily wants that, and she got pretty embarrassed by in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. She might be a filly that just isn't classy enough to really get it done here, and she's going to take a lot of money because of the connections. Crystal Ball is a horse that if you watch that CCA Oaks, she was hard ridden the whole time. I think, again, she's a horse that can't get the distance, and I don't think she wants any part of it. And I think some of these other ones in here, Bonnie Smith, I just don't know if she's fast enough. I know Chase does like her a touch. I wouldn't fault anybody for getting going there. Harvey's Little Goyle is a little interesting. A horse that, maybe can get the distance. Tap it on the bottom, so she's probably a head case. But, I think she's... the problem with Harvey's Little Goyle is that you're betting a horse off from that regret, which we're not running on the green stuff today. I hate betting a horse coming off a big performance on turf, moving back to dirt when she's won on dirt. Was it Busanda? Was an impressive win. Just on figures and what she did, got a good distance. I don't think she really beat anybody there, and I don't necessarily know. This race does not set up like a race at Aqueduct, quite honestly. And then Fire Coral, the other Asmussen horse, is just plain not fast enough on paper to get it done today, and would need an absolute pace collapse. And there is some pace pressure in here. You're going to see Swiss Skydiver forwardly placed. You're going to see Crystal Ball forwardly placed. And Spice is Nice is probably forwardly placed. But I don't think there's enough in here. Some of the Swiss Skydiver has shown that even if the pace sort of does peel off, that she's classy enough to get it done either way. So how I want to play this is a little bit of sort of a game theory contrarian play, and I'll throw up my pick 3 here. I'm using Envuitant as a single A, and I'm using Swiss Skydiver as a C. If you are a little more of a conservative player, I would move Swiss Skydiver up to a B. What that would do is it would put more money through Swiss Skydiver and a little bit less on the front end here, but I'm really trying to leverage up this play. So, and you can see the dollar amounts change underneath. So I'm going with the more aggressive take where I'm going to single Envuitant. In the a little bit of a game theory, she's got to be cranked. She's got to bring her A game, and she was 3rd behind Speech and Venetian Harbor last out. Both of those are pretty classy horses, and I think they're both already in the starting gate for the Kentucky Oaks. She's the best of those that are outside looking in. So let's move on to the 10th. The 10th here is an optional 40, and I think people are probably wondering, well, why didn't you start off and do like an 8-9-10 or a 7-8-9? Quite honestly, I wanted the turf races in here. I think there's a little bit more of some calamity that can happen here, and there's also a horse that has a little bit of a soft spot in my heart in this race. So this is an optional claiming 40 at 5.5 on the inner. Maxwell Esquire in the 1 post here is going to take a ton of money on the connections. Rosario at Clement. My issue here is first the one side, the inside post draw on a horse that does not have speed. That's a real bad combo. We saw during this week where I was singling a Tom Morley horse that was a very similar setup. The one horse in that race was an 8-5 shot favorite who got into a ton of traffic trouble because the horse didn't have speed on at 5.5 from the 1 post to be able to clear. So this is a horse I want no part of and is going to take a ton of money. Horse I'm super interested in here, and if you are a Discord person, you probably heard me harp about this horse, is Call Me Harry. So last year I wrote a whole article for Reddit that was talking about well-meant horses at Saratoga. And my example was this horse, Call Me Harry, who I called out the evening before, and the horse won and paid like $31 to win. When you see connections that are not local connections, Kelsey Danner is not a big name trainer, and she's not a local trainer. I think she's a Penn Parks kind of Marylandy type person. She's got a New York bred here, owned by Newton Annerf Stud, and that was also the breeder, so it's a homebred that they kept. And they do race a lot, but they very clearly could have sold this horse and instead to keep it in the barn. And you see that horse. And if you look at, and I don't have the lines back here, but you're seeing a lot of sort of out of town training. The horse does have a work over the main. Or no, sorry, that's over the turf. That is over the main. It's at the training track. But you see, the horse has been training out of town. And this is what we saw before this horse's maiden score. This horse had been training out of town, had been training at like Keeneland and some of the Maryland training tracks, and they shipped the horse to Saratoga and spot it in a maiden special weight. Obviously, it is a New York bred, so it makes sense to run the horse in New York for the bonuses, but this was the first week of the Saratoga meet last year. Actually, it would have been like, I don't know, I think that would have been a Sunday. So they very easily could have run the horse a week earlier at Belmont, at the tail end of the Belmont meet, and caught easier maiden special weight company. Instead, they decided to ship to Saratoga and get a tougher race for the same amount of money. This is the definition of a well-met horse. It's a horse that you're scratching your head, why is this horse here when he could be a lot of other places or could have run in other slots that would have been easier? Somebody probably has something they want to show off. Horse absolutely won for fun with T-Gaff up, and then came back to win an allowance in the third start, down at Belmont at a mile. They tried to stretch this horse out, showed speed with Manny up, and then failed pretty badly. Now, got beat by some good horses. Seismic Wave is actually a very good, very good horse. Came back here with it, and you saw this November race at Aqueduct at 6 furlongs, again shown speed and faded a little bit. Some interesting things here as well to take note of. Horse gets Lasix for the first time. That very often tends to move a horse up. And also, this horse is coming off a long layoff. Sample size is small. That's not Kelsey Danner's move. But I like Johnny V hopping up on this one. Says that this is probably, once again, a live horse. And I'm going to single A Call Me Harry in here. There's a couple reasons. First thing, early tactical speed has been very, very good here. Arguably, this is the fastest horse in the race early, and this might just be a horse that just wants 5.5 furlongs. And also on the inner at Saratoga, horses that have proven they can handle the corners on the inner tend to run well there. Somebody like a Voodoo Song comes to mind. Horses that really just thrive on the inner and don't go and do well other places. So this is a horse that is super, super interesting to me in here. But there are a couple of others that I do want. One of them is, and let me make sure I have the right two in here, is New York's Finest, who's drawn just outside, moves into the Rudy barn out of the Luis Ramirez barn. Obviously, Rudy does very, very well in moving out of one of the Gulfstream Park specialist trainers. Horses obviously wants this sort of a trip and is 4 for 6 at Saratoga. I love a horse for course. I love a horse that does well at track. And also, you see a horse here that's 4 for 6 lifetime at Saratoga, but 9 for 23. So the horse is hitting at 66% at Saratoga, but 25%, roughly 25%. Or I'm sorry, roughly 30 whatever percent. So guess what I'm getting at here is hits at a much higher percentage at Saratoga than does at other tracks. I can't do math in my head. That was just quite evident and terrible. And the other horse that I wanted in here was a little bit of this 9, Bust and Shout. Bruce Levine trained horse. After moving into the Bruce Levine, was claimed in. They put the horse on turf. First race was pretty good on turf. Definitely seemed to be a better performance. And then Jose Ortiz got up, and the horse, won last out in an optional 40 at 5.5 at Saratoga. So they're coming right back in that same spot. Again, like I said, this is a bit of a tricky trip. Horse has a lot of speed, but this is a horse that I think does not necessarily need the lead. They went right to the lead and stole it on the front end last time. I think this is a horse that Jose can sort of sit off a couple of those other inside speed horses and get sort of first run. He can sit off some of the horses that are speed. Valmont shows some speed. New York's Finest, Call Me Harry. I think he can sort of get that outside stalking trip and get first run. I like Call Me Harry. Hopefully I'm not going back to the well one too many times here, but if you see from the structure I threw up here, I made him a lone A, and I moved the other two back to C's. When I first handicapped this, I was playing it like this, and I think that's, if you're a more conservative player, you're somebody that wants the higher chance of success here, this is still going to pay quite well because, we're leveraging up a $9 play on that all A, but we still have $5 on a single B and $4 on the double Bs. When I move it back like this, that's going to be for the more aggressive player. We're putting $13, so we're getting $4 additional dollars for the all A, and you can only get one of these two. You need one of those singles to come in, and we'd have that for $6. So that play would still pay, but it's a little less. This is the more leveraged structure. So let's take a look at the 11th here, because I'm talking forever. I wanted 3 horses in here. First thing, I don't understand how in the world they have Perfect Banker at 20-1 in here. Horses dropping out of maiden special weight company into maiden claimers. Kendrick gets up. He can get that sort of early positional trip on the rail here, and a horse that should be real forwardly placed. And I love a dropper versus a lot of horses that have competed at this level and not done well. I pointed this out a couple days ago and found some real nice prices in a race. I want the dropper, and especially want the dropper at 20-1. Tom Albertrani's gotten 3 wins on the meet as well, so his horses are, he's hitting what, 20% here, and he's not a high percentage trainer normally, so I think he's spotting them well here. Figs don't say that this one should be involved, but the drop does definitely imply that this one should be live. Other horses I wanted here, the logical horse in here is Brico, the 4, but this is a horse that hasn't gotten it done the last 2 trips at this level, and may be a little camera shy. Horse has been, hit the board 3 times, 2 seconds and a third. Is this just a horse that just doesn't have that killer instinct? Can't just quite finish. Sayez stays here. He had options, so I like to see that. And him and Jimmy Bondi are very good together. So high percentage connections all the way around, but there's some questions to answer here at this level after a couple of times. The other horse, and I love doing this in these types of races, when I see a race like this where I see a lot of horses that haven't gotten it done, you sometimes want to go find a fresh face. And I found a bomb over fresh face here. Night Spot on the outside, owned and trained by the same person, Richard Lugovich, who is a 67% trainer. I don't know where he's from. He's not somebody I know. I think he's a fresh upstart trainer, because if you look at his first starters, he's 67% out of 3 starters. So 2 of 3 have won at first asking, and I don't even know where he's out of. So it's again, this is one of those, when I talk about well-mat horses, I scratch my head and I go, why is this horse here? Yes, it's a New York bred, but you're shipping your New York bred to Saratoga, you're paying all those really expensive barn fees, and you're getting Junior Alvarado, who's a real good local jock, and he's a jock that I really like on the turf, gives a good turf ride. This one has a ton of turf pedigree. Orientate over a Disco Rico on the bottom. I mean, that screams top and bottom turf sprint. Why is this horse 14-1? Drawn way outside, not the best post. Junior's are pretty aggressive. He can be handsy, and I think he can get this one into a good position. There's a lot of horses in here that probably need a pace setup, and I find this one really interesting in a race where there's a lot of question marks. Also, this one isn't getting Lasix, which is a little odd, but sort of interesting. I sort of really get a kick out of this 14. And again, I say I haven't seen scratches. That horse is on the also eligible list. These types of races tend to get a couple scratches. I'm hoping this horse scratches in. If it doesn't scratch in, obviously this ticket gets a little cheaper. So my pick 3 that I have here, the more I think about it, the more I probably play it this way. So $100 play there, it's $96. Gives me some, I have a little bit of flexibility here, and I can also change these amounts around. If I really like that combo, which I sort of do, I can leverage it up. If this 14 scratches out, I will probably try and find another horse in this 11th race that makes some sense in here. I did mention that I was going to throw up a pick 4. So if I was playing the pick 4, I would use this structure for the first 3 races, and then let's talk about this 8th race real quickly here. In the 8th race, this is, the Saratoga Derby Invite. This race came up a little bit interesting. Decorated Invader is the horse in here. Coming 3 consecutive wins, the Cutler Bay, the Pennington Ridge, and the Hall of Fame. You can make a pretty good argument that you could just single Decorated Invader. My issue is that Christophe Clement always tends to tail off towards the back end of the Saratoga meet. This happens less in stakes races. He still will win some stakes races, so I'm less concerned here. This horse has been in very, very, very good form. Works looked really good coming into this. All signs are probably go. A little bit longer than last time out, but again, this is probably your horse, right run style for this sort of a distance. I want a couple of others in here, and I would probably use these 3. So Decorated Invader, I would use Domestic Spending, who again, right run style, 3rd in the Hall of Fame, had a real rough trip. If you go back and look at that, that was a real rough trip, and I'm pretty sure Domestic Spending scratched out of a race earlier in this week to run in here, which probably means all signs are go, and this one has been doing real well in the morning. Arad and Chad is a pretty darn good combo, and if you get anywhere near 6-1, that's almost spot win bettable for those connections. And Chad is known to heat up the back end of the meet. He's normally pretty cold the first 2 weeks, so I think the demise of Chad has been much overdone, and people will start ignoring his horses, and you can start betting them now. The other one I like in here is Colonel Liam for Todd. This horse has shown a ton of early speed, can be very forwardly placed, and they paid a lot of money. They paid $1.2 million for this horse. Don't think turf was the intent, but that last effort was really impressive. Doesn't really have a ton of turf pedigree, but seemed to do real well. So just maybe a talented colt and rounding into best form. I like that they kept this one on turf. I think this makes sense here in this spot. So I would want those 3 as A's, and I know Chase is all about Gufo. My issue there is it's the other Clement, which I do like, but you're not getting like 10-1 on the other Clement. You're getting 9-2. I think the horse makes a lot of sense, 4 straight wins, but the figures have not come back strong enough. I would imagine you're going to be, in buyer's terms, need a 96, 98, 100, something like what Colonel Liam's run, to be able to be competitive in this race, and you're just not going to... I don't think this horse has the ability to take that next step forward. It is second off the layoff, but this one kind of was beating up on probably lesser company at Delaware and Gulfstream Park. I like the horse. I think there are other better horses in here, but the works were really, excuse me, I'm going to burp, the works were really good coming into this. The other horse I'm a little interested is the other Todd Pletcher, No Word, a horse that, again, this is one that needs to take a step forward, but will be a little more forwardly placed in here in a race that there is some speed, but there's not a ton of speed here. No Word may just be a setup horse may just be the setup horse for, or I guess I should say, Colonel Liam may be the setup horse for No Word, which seems odd. Colonel Liam's going to be very, very, very forwardly placed, and I think that No Word is going to get that slightly off the pace trip. You haven't wanted to come out of the clouds the past few days at Saratoga. Maybe this one sits a nice trip, and there isn't anybody better probably in the country right now at riding turf than Jose Ortiz. So that's how I would play this race. I would have it 2-4-6 over 3-5, and I think you can play that through a pick 4, and it wouldn't be very expensive pick 4 using the last 3 that I had, and I think either of those are really good. I'll probably be attacking the pick 3, as I think this race, I'm not as comfortable with this race as I am with some of the others. So hopefully that was helpful for everyone, and until next time, good luck at the races.